Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are author Katie Arnoldi and chef Michel Bouchoucha. Author Katie Arnoldi comes from a prominent California family. Her father was an astute businessman. Her mother, Patricia, is an archaeologist, and her husband, Chuck, is a celebrated artist. Kathy has been a competitor. Kathy, hi, Kathy.
I don't know.
Katie. Katie has been a competitive surfboard champion, and in 1992, in another type of competition, she won the Southern California Women's Bodybuilding Championship. Before we talk about her second book, was Gidget around when you were on your surfboard?
No, Gidget's quite a bit older than I am.
I got it.
And actually, Gidget doesn't really know how to surf. Let's just say that.
But were you the only girl at that time carrying a longboard on the beach?
No, when I was growing up, actually, I didn't surf the longboard. And there were about 3 or 4 other girls. Girls didn't surf much when I was a kid.
And why were you surfing?
Because I lived on the beach. And it was fun.
But what else could you do on the beach?
You could sit on the beach and watch the boys surf. Or you could surf. And I've always been the one surfing as opposed to watching.
The one thing with surfing is you have to get up early in the morning, right?
Yes.
And kids hate to get up early in the morning.
Not my kids.
And you too. You were always up early.
Yeah.
Or you still are up early.
I'm one of those, if it starts to get light, I get up. When it starts to get dark, I'm ready to go to bed, though.
Oh, that's why. So, because most of the surfer kids go out early before what?
Well, it depends on the tides, but yeah, dawn patrol, definitely. Ryan and Natalie are big dawn patrol fans. So.
Natalie's your daughter. And she surfs too?
She surfed competitively, both did.
Oh, she did? Both children? So your boy?
Ryland surfed competitively, then went off to college. Natalie did, now she's going off to Stanford, so she won't be surfing so much up there. But
so surfing was because you were on the beach?
Surfing was because I was on the beach. And then I was writing, actually, from the time I was in high school all the way through Chemical Pink. But I wasn't selling anything. I'm telling you why I was a competitive surfer. And so at a certain point, I stopped writing and took up competitive surfing because I was so frustrated at not selling anything. So I only surfed competitively for a short period of time.
Okay, then you mentioned Chemical Pink, but you were a bodybuilder. Why bodybuilder? What I was getting at was you were on the beach for surfing, but were you in the gym for bodybuilding?
Chuck and I moved to New York shortly after we got married and went to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning pretty much every single night, and it was not good. So when we moved back to LA, I was feeling, I was like 25 or something, and I was feeling pretty unhealthy. So I joined a gym. And there was this guy there training this girl. This is before women's bodybuilding. This was a long time. Maybe it was like 83 or 4. Lisa Lyons was the only woman. It wasn't happening yet.
And she was our friend.
She was our friend, right.
Yeah.
So he was training this girl, and she looked fantastic. So I said to this guy, that's what I want to look like. She was gorgeous. So I started training with this guy named Skip DeBilda. He lived in his car at the YMCA. And it was really fun, and I started looking really good and feeling really good. And we were back in California, which is another thing that made me feel good. And so I did this training all the way through my second pregnancy. But I wasn't a bodybuilder. I was just training.
Oh, just to look good.
Just to look good. But I was around bodybuilding. I started training at Gold's and all this stuff. Second pregnancy, I had to go to bed for 6 months. And I was lying in bed every day thinking about my life. And as I said, no one was buying my short stories because they were horrible. But I didn't know that. And so I was lying there, and I decided, when I get up, forget writing. No one wants to read me. I'm never going to write again. I'm going to become a bodybuilder. And I did. I started training really hard. And it was actually in 1992 that I won the Southern California Championship.
why would you take up bodybuilding? It was like pretty unattractive,
It's
wasn't it?
Yes, and you know, I do know now why. Then I couldn't have answered it, but I know why. It was about reclaiming control of my body because I was in bed literally for 6 months.
Oh, that's right.
On my back. So it was about physically regaining control, and also finally setting out, having a goal and accomplishing it, because I couldn't sell anything, and I was surrounded by all these really successful artists. Everyone in my life was successful, and then there was little me writing the little short stories that never sold, and I felt like such a loser. So I really think it was about that.
And the other thing, I remember you're saying, you'd say, I'm a writer, and the first thing they'd say, are you published?
Yeah. No, not are you published, what have you published? And where have I read you?
Oh, like that.
Oh, it was so awful. It made me feel terrible. So then, I'm a bodybuilder. In fact, I'm the Southern California bodybuilding champion. That was kind of a better cocktail answer than I'm a loser writer.
And also, I must have given you a lot of information for your book,
Right.
Chemical Pink.
Right. So then I'm in this world of bodybuilding, seeing the most horrific things. It was fascinating. Finished with bodybuilding, did the competitive surfing, still saying I'm never going to write again. And then finally, it was like lightning struck. I sat down, I wrote this novel so fast, the first one, Chemical Pink, really fast. I finished it in less than a year. It just came. And it was the first time that I ever wrote anything that I wasn't in. And I think that's why it was the first story I ever wrote that wasn't starring Katie, and it was the first thing that was successful that I ever wrote.
About someone else.
It's about other people. I had to get out of, I have to get out of my way in order for my fiction to work.
Okay, so it's going to be a film.
It was optioned by New Line. It was David Fincher and Art Linson were the producers. And it was their first project together. So it was very exciting. And then they had a falling out, and Chemical Pink was the victim of that. So then, this is quite a few years ago, like 6 years ago. So then, since then, there's been several different producers, and now Ted Field has it, and Jonas Ackerlund is going to direct it, and it's in the works.
Do you have any say-so in the casting? Who do you see as that bodybuilder?
Well, you know, I don't know how much say-so I'll have. I wrote the screenplay, so and it's a very, very specific and rarefied subculture. They do kind of need me because, well, and also Jonas, the director, and I get along so well. So, they looked at a bunch of real, you know, hot actresses in Hollywood as the lead, but in order for them to really do what needs to be done, it would be so fake. So now we're thinking a real girl, and
really?
we'd have to go out and have auditions all over the country and find her, which would be fantastic.
So if you start with the real girl, though, you would kind of build her up
I mean,
to
a real
be what?
a real bodybuilder.
A bodybuilder,
a real bodybuilder girl that could act, and then it would just be the lead. And they're in the course of figuring out how to go about that, but it's active.
So that book went really fast.
That one really fast. It did really well. It really did well, actually. It sold extremely well. And then this book.
Then we have The Wentworths.
Wentworths.
How long does that take?
That took 5 years.
Why?
I can tell you why. Because, well, many reasons, but The Wentworths, Chemical Pink is written straightforward, third person, past tense. Just straightforward.
Easy to write, you mean?
Easy to write, no problem with the structure of the book. I sat out and thought that's how I'd write this book too. So I tried, and with several different points of view, I tried, and almost from the beginning, there's a main character in this book called Norman, who is the gay son who lives in the pool house, who in my mind is the star of the book. I love him so much. And right from the very beginning, he would not let me narrate this book. He immediately insisted on addressing the reader directly. And it sounds like I'm a crazy person, but these characters take over, and he was speaking directly to the reader, and I couldn't control him. And then once he had a voice, his sister had to have a voice. And so then I have these two people in present first person, and the rest in third person past, and it's juggling and trying to balance. And this book breaks all the rules. I mean, I've got everything going, first, second, third, present, past. It's out of, so that's why it took so long.
It's so great, and it's so easy to read.
Right.
I didn't even think of any of those things.
Well, that's good. But if you go back and look at it again, you'll see it's all over the map in terms of structure, and it was really hard to balance.
I was just like, this is really fast. You can't wait to read each chapter.
Yeah,
like you hate to close the book because you want to know what's going on.
Good. I'm glad. But it was really hard to do.
Well, that's why it was so easy to read.
Yeah.
Because you put a lot of time into it.
It took a long time.
But of course, this is a question you have to ask. Is it autobiographical?
And everyone's asked me that question.
Of
okay,
course.
so I want to back up and tell you that in Chemical Pink, the first novel, There's a character called Charles Worthington, and he is just a crazy sexual pervert that does really, really weird stuff. Funny, but weird, right? That book came out, and people, close friends of mine who read a lot, who should know better, started kind of pulling me aside and saying, "No, hey, baby, I had no idea about you and Chuck. Chuck is my husband." And I, you know, how do you defend it? Say, no, this isn't my sex life. They're like, well, how could you know if you? So no matter how much I protested that, people believe what they're going to believe, and I just gave up on Chemical Pink. So the same thing with this. I knew that anytime a writer sits down and talks about a family, everyone's going to think it's your family, especially since I do come from this demographic.
You come from this background. You come from the West Side family. You come from a successful father. You come from a mother who's interested in things. You have brothers.
Right. And
you don't have a sister, but you have two brothers.
I don't have a sister. But okay, so one of my friends from high school, Westlake, which I think somebody else might have gone to too.
I went to Westlake too.
Anyway, a girlfriend of mine from Westlake was at one of my readings, and she asked a question. It was a great question. Someone said, "How did you know to ask that?" And she said, "Well, I went to Wentworth High with Katie." I mean, I grew up surrounded by these people.
I went to Wentworth High?
Yes. I grew up surrounded by these people. This is not my family, but these are the families that I spent my formative years with, and unfortunately, my kids grew up with these people too. So.
The other thing that people ask you, I think, and I have to ask you, is how hard or how easy is it to write those sex scenes?
Sex scenes are the easiest thing for me to write. Why is that?
I don't know.
I could just do a whole book of sex scenes. It's not hard for me.
But your mom and your children, you don't want them to read
Well,
it.
actually, I do want my children to read. They refuse, and I understand. And my mother, on the first book she wrote, read the opening chapter, the closing chapter, skipped the middle, and I said, and this one's got even more weird sex, so she's skipping the whole thing on that. That's fine.
That's what she told me.
Yeah, it's fine, just skip it.
But also then there's fetishes in it too, right?
Well, the driving question behind this book, for me, what I've been walking around with, obsessed with for the last 20 years because I have had kids, is how do people get so damn messed up? Sometimes I use another word there that starts with an F. But how do people get so messed up? What happens in their lives?
Right.
And so that's the theme behind this. What is it? I believe that you can go back and look at the very beginning. It's at families, basically. It's the early childhood, what happens along the way. That's where fetishes get started. People get stuck in their development. You know, they get stuck on feet or they get stuck on whatever. That's where fetishes come from.
But where'd you hear from them? How'd you research that? Your friends?
Well, no, it's not hard to research fetishes. You want to hear my favorite one? Balloonism, which I didn't have in this book, but this is, you know, someone got stuck at a birthday party. Oh, right. That people get obsessed with balloons and blowing them up and the noise of it and the squeakiness and ooh, then they pop. Balloonism is, you can read about it. It's a known fetish. And how does that happen to people, and how do I not let that happen to my kids? So this is what I've been thinking about, and this is sort of what I address with the Wentworths.
Okay.
One of the main
That's
themes.
one of the things, and you have been researching things because you're talking about your next novel.
Right.
And that is a funny research. That's interesting stuff too.
Yeah, the next novel's called, the working title is called Alienation My Way. And we'll see, that may change. But it's about outlaws. And the main character is called Ellis, and she is just a bad, bad woman. She's beautiful. She's mean to men, and they write her letters, and please, baby, so it's really fun to write. But it takes, I love her so much. It takes place in a town that kind of looks like Malibu that's been invaded, that's been invaded by all the wealth that's come in and sort of displaced a lot of the people that have been there for generations. And then the other thing that's happened is the Mexican drug cartel has also moved into Malibu in the mountains, and I'm very interested in that.
But you talk about her, and when you describe these people, it's like describing Katie, the muscle builder, and the surfer, and the well-bred daughter, and here you have the Malibu girl again.
Right, okay, and actually in this book, the character I was talking about, Norman, the gay younger brother, he's me. If anyone wants to know what I think like, I'm Norman. So if you're interested in who is Katie Arnoldi, she's Norman, the gay younger brother. That's how I think. And I'm actually in every single one of these characters is true.
Well, you would have to be.
Yeah.
They always say if an artist paints a portrait, you can find a part of him in that portrait.
Exactly.
And so you find a part of you in all of these books.
All of them. But what's funny about my characters is they don't go away when I finish the book. They're all up there rattling around. And so like one of the ones from Chemical Pink appeared in the Wentworths. And for sure, I promise some Wentworths will appear in this next one because they won't go away.
Of course.
Once I bring them to life, they're there forever.
Well, I'm glad you came and told us about it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks. It was fun.
Thanks for watching Katie Arnoldi. I don't know why I said Kathy. Do we know Kathy?
No,
we
I
don't.
don't.
We don't know Kathy. Katie Arnoldi and her book, The Wentworth. And we'll be right back with Chef Michel Bouchoucha. Hi, welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm Joan Quinn, and I'm with Chef Michel Bouchoucha, who was born and raised in Carthage, Tunisia, where at the age of 15, he left to go to school in Paris. He worked in kitchens in Paris, Sweden, and Japan. He's not only a food person, but he's an entertainment person. He likes to do the combination of both. And I think that combination of entertainment and food shows up at your restaurant, the Lido. What's it, Lido
The
Grill?
Lido Grill, yes.
The Lido Grill in Marina del Rey.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about that, how you mix food and entertainment.
There are 3 languages people understand on the planet, whether they are at war or disputing things among themselves. And these 3 languages are actually food, music, and dancing. Once you speak these 3 languages in one spot, guess what? All their inhibition walks away, and their guards are down, and they are up and happy, and you know, there is a communication somehow. There is a flow of energy among these 3 languages, and that's what the Lido is all about.
That's your restaurant is about that, but how long did it take you to learn to put those 3 things together?
Oh, I knew about these languages when, since I was a young kid, where I came from. Funny enough, you have, in my culture especially, families who are very loud, and even though they are trying to communicate, you think they are fighting.
Right, because they're yelling at each other.
Because they're at each other, but actually they're communicating, and suddenly the music happens, and the food gets served, and you see one person stands up and dance, and then everybody mellows out.
I see.
So I thought to myself when I was a young kid, wow, maybe they should be doing all this all the time.
You were thinking that?
Yeah, they would be doing no wars, no fighting, no screaming, nothing. They'd be always happy.
When you were in Tunisia, did you start cooking then?
You know, my cultures have a lot of traditions, and my
Yes.
mother was a traditionalist, although she was a very well-educated lady. She would say, the kitchen is not made for a man, get out of here.
Oh, she was.
By the age of 11, that's between 6 and 11, by the age of 11, she would ask me the question, who would you like to marry when you grow up? I said, I have no idea. You know, I don't think I'm going to get married. Seeing you guys all the time fighting, so I really don't want to do this. I'm having fun. And then she goes, then again, come in the kitchen. I'll teach you the ropes. That way in the future, if you decide not to get married, you would know how to cook for yourself.
Oh, she really did?
Yeah.
So you did start learning
So
traditional Tunisian
I was
food?
helping her dishwashing, learning how to chop onions, crying when I chop the onions and all that stuff.
Well,
So
what is a Tunisian kitchen like? I was in Tunis, and I absolutely love that country.
It
The
has
country's
it
wonderful.
has the Arabo Italian influence.
It has an Italian?
Yeah, of course, it has Italian influence, and if you go to Spain, you'll see a lot of that too. Especially in Malta, you will see a
right.
combination of Italian and Tunisian food all across Malta, where my father originally came from.
Oh, I was in
And-
Malta too,
Yeah.
but they never leave Malta. I'm surprised
Yeah.
your father left.
My father is a fisherman,
Oh, that's
and
why.
my father actually was a better cook than my mother.
Ah,
And fishermen at the time, they didn't have any specific discipline about cooking.
mm-hmm.
So they cooked when they are in the boat, and whatever they caught, it's over there with the white wine, the red wine, what have you, and the food would be so delicious. And that's really was my inspiration. Unlike other chefs I learned from my mother, no, I learned actually from my father more.
I see.
So I
So
learned
it's a combination.
a combination
you're
of both, yes.
saying. And what do they cook mostly? Fish in Tunisia?
Yes, yes. My mother emphasized my father too, you don't want to eat meat a lot.
Oh, they do.
Fish is the essential item on the plate with a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruit, especially in the summertime.
So healthy.
Very healthy. Mediterranean cuisine is one of the healthiest cuisines on the planet. As a matter of fact, Mediterranean people don't die that fast when they get older.
Then you went to Paris. Did you apprentice with a
I went to
chef
Paris,
there?
and out of necessity, my mother and father died, And I was in France, actually, and I thought to myself, either I have to return, and I got nothing, and I will stay here, and I do something about myself.
Were you speaking French?
We
They
speak,
French
all
in
of us
Tunisia?
speak fluently French,
Yeah, okay.
since the
So
young
it was
age.
easy for you
It's
to
our
be in,
second language, yeah.
I see.
So I apprenticed. I went in to work at a restaurant as an apprentice with a gentleman called Gabriele Alfari. This gentleman, he's an Italian chef, and he was the Queen of England chef for 20 years.
That was amazing. Where
Yes.
was he? Was he cooking in England?
He had a restaurant in Paris after he finished working for the Queen.
Oh, but he
herself.
did work for the Queen in London, in
Yeah.
England, and
After
then
that,
he
he
came.
opened in Paris.
Oh.
And I went to apprentice there. I got in. I said, I would like to learn. He says, you're too young for this. I said, oh, well, I need a job. And I start chopping. And when he was off, I would go into the kitchen and cook myself little stuff that I learned from Tunisia. And sometimes he pretends to go away, but he returns. And he sees the pot on the stove, and he will dip his finger and say, who cooked this? And I have to say me, because otherwise, you know. And he was a very strong man, very, very vocal. And I say, it's me. He goes, okay. And then he walked away. He never shouted at me. And after a couple of months like that, he goes, come on. You want to learn how to truly cook? Yeah, I'm going to show you the ropes, but after that, I want you to go get educated.
Oh, he
And
did.
he was the instrumental, person who told me, let's go.
He
Go
was
get
like
educated.
your mentor.
Yeah.
He started you. Did he ever tell you what he cooked for the Queen?
He would actually create Italian and French dishes with a lot of brandy sauce, French
Really?
style, you know, Provence style cooking, because, you know, the Queen didn't want to eat always English.
But was he French or was
No,
he?
he was Italian.
He was
He
Italian,
was
and
Italian.
he did
Yeah,
get
he
a
did
job.
created a lot of cuisine over there. He actually mixed the Italian and the French into the English, and that's where I start thinking outside the box. After I came out of school, I said, well, if he could do it, I can do it too, because you know, French cooks or Italian cooks or Spanish cooks, they would like not to mix much, you know.
And then, then did you go to Switzerland to go to school?
Yes, Lausanne.
That's where you went to school.
Yes.
And then the weird thing is, in Sweden, you opened a pizzeria.
Yeah, I won the championship of making pizza and pasta. I was only 17, and I thought to myself, where do I go to really make a difference? Because in France, you have all kind of big chefs, and Italy, of course. I was a young kid.
But was that what you had learned with your chef, with Alfieri?
Yeah.
Pizza
So
making?
when I won the championship in Italy, I was the only non-Italian who won it at the time. I went to Sweden, and I liked the country so much, I said, I'll stay here and do something. And that's where my first pizzeria started. I was 18 years old.
That's amazing, and it
Yeah.
was a big success.
It was a huge success, which gave me plenty of funds to open my first nightclub, which was called Café Monte Carlo.
If you call yourself making a pizza, would you call yourself a chef at that point, or were you just...
No, you could call yourself a pizza maker.
That's what...
You know?
Then when did you become a chef?
No, I had my training.
You already had
as
it.
a cuisine. I knew exactly what to do in the kitchens, whether it is French or Italian
I
or
see.
all the other. And then I made a deliberate attempt to travel.
Oh, so
And
Monte
every
Carlo?
place I opened Monte Carlo, Café Monte Carlo in Sweden. It was very successful.
Oh, you opened Monte Carlo
Yeah.
in Sweden?
And it was a nightclub, a restaurant. It was very successful too. I sold it, and after that I did travel, and I went to Spain. I learned how to cook Spanish. I went back to Italy. I learned how to cook even more Italian. I went back to France. I learned how to cook even more French, you know.
Incredible. Before we leave, I want you to just tell us a little bit. I'll hold
This is called
up.
paella mar.
Stay back so he can get
This
it on
is
the-
paella mar. It's purely mint rice and saffron, a lot of seafood version of. There is about 13 versions in Spain alone about paella.
So
this
that's
is
the
one of them,
Spanish thing.
yeah.
And this is what
This
you
is
have at the
called
Lido Grill.
cibassa anglaise, which is actually a breaded seared sea bass with beurre blanc and caper sauce.
Okay.
And this is called bruschetta fig. It's country bread with brie cheese melted and figs.
Oh, wow.
And drizzle of honey and mint. It's to die for, is our best
That
seller.
looks great.
And this is crab meat stuffed mozzarella with mango and red sauce. So it's also very, very good. So
And everything's fresh.
everything,
because
we
that's
do
what
everything
you-
fresh from scratch. We bake everything from scratch. We do everything from scratch.
Tell us what the clients in the marina like? Are
You
they
have-
like the European clients?
No. You have the affluent, you have the movie producers, the actors, and the rich people who are on board. But all of them have been very, very positive to us being there or coming there. They welcomed us with open arms. We have been a huge success overnight.
And you have flamenco dancing on
Thursday nights, yes.
And where do you get those people from?
There is an old friend of mine. She's a flamenco dancing teacher, a maestra. And she actually one of the few who have been in Spain and learned in Spain the correct way.
So
she
she
learned
brings-
the sevillanas, the tanguitos, all those. And she's still here, and she has her own troupe. Her name is Batista Germau. The group is called LA Flamenco. She invites very famous people like Mr. Miguel Bernal, which is one of the world's best flamenco dancers,
To come in?
to come in and
So
showcase.
you never know when they're going to be there.
You
'Cause
never
she
know.
just, you
But
don't know who's going to be there.
Correct. You count on Thursdays to have flamenco show regardless.
And all this food is on the menu?
All this food is on the menu.
And how did you learn how to promote your restaurant?
I build all my restaurant by myself.
That's right, and
from
the
scratch.
menu, right.
And then during the build-up, I advertise in the windows. I do flyers. So that period of between 3 to 9 months, period of building the restaurant, I already have coming out with so much excitement to people
that's
that
what I
people would
wondered.
say, "Wow, well, this place must be incredible." And when they come, I really need to show them that what they expected is there. So that's
So you call it Mediterranean cuisine.
Mediterranean cuisine.
And would you ever do anything that's just totally Tunisian or
Yes,
totally?
yes.
Oh, you
I have
do.
a couple of dishes that are totally
Oh.
Tunisians.
And then
I have couscous, they're totally Tunisian. I have
That's a-
another dish called oja, which is
Oh.
a tomato sauce baked in oven with eggs and lamb sausage. It's very delicious. Tunisian cuisine is very delicious
Yeah.
cuisine. It's very incredible cuisine.
Well, Michel, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And I can't
Thank
wait
you for
to
having me.
Do that.
Flamenco, yeah. Ole.
and keep writing to us and email me at jaquinn1 AOL and keep writing to 777 South Figueroa. Thanks for watching today.